My name is Jake. Welcome to the channel. I want to talk about the most popular dividend ETFs here this year in 2022. So I'm not going to just share my opinion. I'm actually going to go in and show you the research that I've done and the data behind what people are actually buying. So it's not going to be one of those videos where I say, hey guys, this is, these are the best dividend ETFs because I said so. No, I'm actually going to show you Google Trends. I'm going to show you what people are searching for. I'm going to show you where people are putting their money where their mouth is and where people are actually parking their money. So stick around. That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Before we dive into that, I want to take just a second and I want to talk about, the market volatility that we're seeing here this year. Now, if you're a new investor, this is creepy as hell, right? You're seeing your portfolio go up and down 3, 4, 5%. It's really scary, but you have to understand that market volatility is normal. What we had in 2020, 2021, where the market essentially only went up, that's not normal, right? So, when you see a drawdown of more than 5%, that's more normal than what we saw in 2021. So if you're new to investing, which I think the majority of you are, if you're subscribed to my channel, I really cater my content to new investors, right? I think about myself 5 years ago when I was first learning about dividend investing. I try to make every video with that persona in mind. So if you're a new investor looking to get into dividend investing, you're who I'm speaking to, right? I'm speaking to my old self 5 years ago. If I would have found a channel like this, I want to share the type of content that I wish I would have had 5 years ago. So when I look at my own portfolio, the historical data here goes back to September 8th. Don't let that confuse you. I've been with M1 Finance actually for 3 years. In fact, I just got an email from them that I had a 3-year M1 anniversary. Is that how I say it? Anniversary? Whatever. Yeah. So I've been with M1 Finance for 3 years now. I transferred over my brokerage account from from Vanguard back here in September of last year, and it reset the history. Okay. But that's kind of showing the historical performance here on the screen. But if I look here, the last week, the portfolio is held up decently. If I look at the last month, look at this. It's up one day, down one day, up one day. Like, what does this remind you of? Like, I look at this up and down, like, look at all these dips. And if you go and you see anybody talking about finance, they always say buy the dip, right? Buy the dip. It's a great buying opportunity. It'll never get this cheap again. But I think I've seen it like 1,000 times on Instagram where people are like, buy the dip. This is the buying opportunity of a lifetime. And then the next week it's down another 5%. And they're like, no, buy the dip again. That's been kind of everybody's reality these last couple of months here. And this notion of buy the dip and all that good stuff, buying the dip in 2022, it kind of looks a little like this.
Buy the dip, 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 don't trip, buy the dip, buy the dip.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I don't know, my gosh. Okay, so we're going to talk about the most popular dividend ETFs. And in terms of full disclosure, I want to share with you my ETFs so that, I'm not really biased. I don't care what you buy or what you don't buy. And the ETFs that I own in my portfolio, I have SCHD, VYM, DGRO, JEPI, QLD, and RYLD. I also have VNQ in my real estate portfolio, but I have 7 ETFs in my taxable account. This is in a taxable portfolio. I have other ETFs in my Roth IRA like VGT, VTI, VOO, VXUS, but I want to focus on these here. So, because these are the dividend ETFs that I'm going to rely on in early retirement when my wife and when we reach FIRE. Okay, so when I talk about my favorite dividend ETFs, I like to make sure that I'm upfront and honest and saying, hey, these are the ones that I invest in. So now let's talk about the most popular dividend ETFs out there. Okay, so if you search in Google, or if you go on YouTube and you search, best dividend ETFs, you're going to see an article like this. And when I was first starting out, first learning about dividend investing, I would, and I still do it today, I click on every article that has best dividend ETF. If there's some subset of that, in the sentence, I will click on the article. The 7 best dividend ETFs of 2022. Okay, you got me. I hooked you. I clicked on it. Let me see what you got in here. And so if I look at this article, I look at the different ETFs that they're naming. Most times I'm familiar because I've been doing this for long enough that I can kind of recognize the names. But in this article, I'm just like, what the heck? What is, JPIN? There's a lot of ETFs in here that you would have never seen 2 years ago or 3 years ago, because the market, the economy was in a different place. So you got, a short-term inflation protected security index. You would have never seen this ETF in any article a year ago. You got WPS, you got WDIV, you got SPHD. This is a more popular one. I've seen this for years. This is very popular, especially here on YouTube. You got HDV, pretty popular one as well. I'm a pretty big fan of this one. I like the low expense ratio of HDV. And you got VIG. This is like, everybody's favorite because it's from Vanguard. Because it's from Vanguard and because it has dividend appreciation in the name of the ETF, everyone by default kind of loves this ETF. Okay? Or it gets a lot of attention. But what I'm getting at is when you're a new investor and you're trying to understand, okay, what are some of the best dividend ETFs out there? And you go on YouTube and you type, okay, best dividend ETFs. You're going to see a lot of content creators on YouTube that are creating content around different ETFs. And they're sharing, for whatever reason, kind of rinsing, repeating somewhat the same content around what are some of the best ETFs, right? What are the best monthly dividend ETFs? What are the best for passive income? You're going to see a lot of thumbnails with faces on it. You're going to see a lot of like doomsday, the world is ending thumbnails. And yeah, that's kind of what happens. But let's talk about what are really actually the most popular dividend ETFs out there. And so if you go on Google Trends and you search for, a handful of different ETFs, you can see by region, by time frame, what is the most searched ETF out there. And so because I'm a dividend nerd and because I spend my weekends looking at graphs and stuff like this is what I do. And that's why I'm going to make a video about it. And so some of my favorite ETFs out here, the ones that I see on a more reoccurring basis, SCHD, QYLD, JEPI, VIG, and VTV. We'll get to this one in just a second. This one's kind of interesting. But if you look at, the interest here in 2022 worldwide, you can see that this red line is QYLD. There has been a lot of search volume for QYLD. And then the second one here that spiked up is VTV. And then you got SCHD, you got JEPI, and then you got VIG. And now this obviously changes over time, but you look at that spike. QYLD way up there. You can see that the search volume is changing, but what I thought was also really interesting is by region, right? You look here in the United States that QYLD is the most popular, but it's not it's not such a clear winner like, for example, with Canada. In Canada, QYLD makes up 57% of the search volume. Those people that are going on Google and searching QYLD in the search bar, right? And JEPI is actually a lot less popular because that's the name of the game here. How often is it being searched, right? It's a lot less popular than QYLD. I found that really interesting. Brazil, JEPI is also not as popular. And then with the other ones, SAHD, QYLD, they're pretty evenly distributed. But then let's take a look at Europe. Let's see, France, you got QYLD it being really popular. SAHD and JEPI, not at all in France. Switzerland, where's Germany? Germany, QYLD makes up about half of it. I think that's really interesting. QYLD, I did not know that QYLD was so popular. Okay, now let's look at Australia. Australia's QYLD as well. Wow. Let's look down here in Argentina, VTV. What about Mexico? VTV. Okay, So, and here you can see the breakup for a few different other countries. But what's interesting for me is seeing, okay, who is searching for what? And this is 2022. Now, let's take a look at, I don't know, maybe we do this, expand it to the past 12 months. Let's see what we see here. You can see that QLD kind of started sparking here in December of last year. But even then, it was still the highest or the most popular for the entire year. That's really, really interesting for me. Which one is the yellow one here? The yellow one is JEPI. So JEPI is actually not as popular. I'm shocked by this. I thought JEPI would have been a lot more popular than what's showing in Google Trends here. Interesting. Okay, so now let's take this a step further. So this is what people are actually searching. Now, you understand that there's retail investors. Retail investors are you and me, right? Individuals. We're considered retail investors. And then you have institutional investors. Those are big hedge funds, larger organizations, managed by fund managers who are managing millions and billions of dollars. And the volume there can be pretty skewed, right? So when I look at the Google Trends, I see this more representative of the retail investor. But the next thing that we're going to take a look at are actually ETF fund inflows. Now, bear in mind that this could be a bit skewed. It's take it with a grain of salt, because the inflows that I'm going to show you, it doesn't distinguish between retail and institutions. So it could fudge with the numbers a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to take the 7 quote unquote best ETFs from this article from Forbes, and I want to take a look and see if money is actually flowing into the quote unquote best ETFs from that article. Whenever I see an article, best dividend ETF, like before, I would always take it at face value and be like, oh, but these are the best. It said it in the article, it's the best. And now when I look under the hood, I'm just like, no. It was either clickbait or opinionated or something. I don't know. But when we actually look under the hood and see, is there real money flowing into these ETFs, right? We're going to use ETF.com. We're going to use the fund flows. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at from January 1st, 2022 up until today, and we're going to see where money is actually going in. So these numbers are in millions, right? So what you can see here is this JPIN is actually really not that popular. It isn't quote unquote the best is what it appears, right? Or at least most investors or many investors do not view this as the quote unquote best dividend ETF. But if we look at the short-term inflation protected ETF here, this one is actually fairly popular, or it's more popular than the other one, for example. And HDV is the most popular by, in terms of net inflows, in terms of dollars out of the bunch here. But what I found was interesting is when that article, which was written just a few days ago, says that this is the best ETF, people are fleeing. Money is coming out of this ETF. And so I'm just like, what? VIG is pretty consistent. VIG is always going to be, one of the leaders in whenever you're looking at inflows because of Vanguard. It just has that Vanguard name. WPS, like this one has zero inflows. Like nobody is buying this ETF. SPHD, fairly popular, right? Not as popular as HDV and VIG, but yeah, it's okay. So this is really interesting. So when you're looking at these articles, right? 7 best dividend ETFs, or when you go on YouTube and you see, somebody offering their opinion on what is the best X, Y, and Z. When you look under the hood, this is a way that you can cross-check, the facts. Always do your own due diligence and research. And this is a way, it's a free resource. You can use it in a website like this to confirm, maybe it's, confirming your bias in one way or another, but this is going to help you to be able to do your research and confirm maybe what your thoughts were, if this was a popular ETF or not. So I want to take it a step further. And I want to add in some of my ETFs, DGRO, VIG, SCHD, VYM, SPYD, VTV, SDY, QYLD, JEPI, Devo. Devo is really, really popular here on YouTube. I don't invest in Devo, but it's really popular. And then NUSI. And we're going to do the exact same time frame for January 1st, 2022 up until today. Bear in mind, this is in millions. So let's look under the hood and let's see where money is actually flowing into these ETFs this year. So right off the bat, let's just take a look at the most popular one here is VTV. Who would have guessed that VTV was the most popular? VTV is the Vanguard Value ETF. And so this is where I'm thinking, you know how I talked about retail and institution? I believe that a lot of institutions are buying VTV. And so that's why I believe that the Vanguard Value ETF is there's so much money flowing into it because a lot of these fund managers are fleeing from growth and they're buying value. And that's part of this whole reshuffling, this transition out of growth into value that we're seeing. And this is one of the most popular and is the easiest way to gain broad exposure at a low fee into value. So that's my theory behind why VTV. And by the way, I view VTV as a dividend ETF. It's more skewed. It has a higher dividend than the S&P 500. For me, it's a dividend ETF. That's why I have it included in here. Yeah, that's why I believe we're seeing so much in inflows here into VTV. But then after that, if we take VTV out of it, let's take a look and see who's the second best performing. And that is going to be my favorite ETF in SCHD, Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. This is the second highest performing, the second most popular. What is the third most popular? It's got to be JEPI. JEPI is the third. And then the fourth is going to be VYM, the Vanguard High Dividend ETF. Okay, and then you got QYLD in here. So what I found was interesting is, you know how I talked about this, right? QYLD was the most popular among retail, but where money is actually flowing, like big money, it's not flowing into QYLD. I mean, it is, but relative to these other behemoths, it's nowhere close, right? But I would guess that the majority of the shareholders in QYLD are probably going to be your retail. That's just a guess. I don't know for sure though. You got SPYD in here, okay? You got Devo. I'm actually pretty surprised that Devo is that high, given how, Amplify is not a very well-known brand out there. I'm actually pretty impressed with the net inflows. I don't invest into Devo, but that's pretty impressive because it's not like a Vanguard or a BlackRock, for example. SDY, okay. You know what's interesting? I thought this was so interesting. Over the last couple of years, I've always seen SDY pop up in almost every single article. But yeah, SDY is definitely popping up on a lot of articles, at least in the past, these last couple of years. I've always seen SDY in these top dividend ETFs or best dividend ETFs to invest in now. SDY is always in there, but it's not the most popular, at least this year. VYM, very popular. It's got the Vanguard brand. DGRO, this is actually pretty high. I did not expect DGRO to be as high as it is, but that's nice. VIG, so out of everything here, what probably shocked me the most was Devo being as high as it was, and what shocked me was VIG being as low as it is, right? VIG is the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF. Like, it's been on every article, same with SDY, that I can remember over the last couple of years, right? Dividend appreciation or dividend growth ETF, VIG is on every single list, right? And so I find it interesting that the inflows have been lower than these other ETFs. I don't know, it's interesting. And then NUSI, this is pretty surprising. NUSI is just like nothing. Like nothing has flown into NUSI. This has been, NUSI, and then NUSI, Devo, and VIG. Those were the ones that were most shocking to me. But let's do one thing here. Let's take this back and let's look from before the pandemic here. Let's look at 2020 in January 1st. Let's see what the net inflows were then. What changed here? So Devo, once again, really decently high, relative to the others. It's decent. SDY, like, I kid you not, every single article these last couple of years, it's always talking about SDY, and I never could understand it. I don't know why. Maybe they got paid to write those articles. DGRO, really, look at that. DGRO, really high. VTV, the highest. Okay, makes sense. SHD, the second highest. JEPI, pretty high. Where's QYLD? QYLD? Okay, not too bad. JEPI is more popular than QYLD over the last 2+ years. Okay, well, cool. Yeah, I just thought that was interesting. So if you want to do some research and you want to go a step further and you want to invest into multiple ETFs, I always get some smarty pants in the comment section always saying, well, Jake, if you invest into 2 ETFs, there's so much fund overlap. What's the purpose of it? I'm just like, oh, dude, seriously, just do your research. But if you want to use this tool as well, I will leave a link to this website in the description below. But what you can do is you can come in here and you can actually see the fund overlap, right? So when we're comparing SCHD with VOIM, 89% of SCHD's 104 holdings are also in VOIM. So, but then here, if you look, 20% of VOIM's 449 holdings are also in SCHD. And so you can see the actual overlap by weight. And so you look at this and you see, okay, they're both dividend ETFs. Does it make sense to own one or the other? In all reality, you could actually own both of them and you're getting a really good amount of diversification and there's not as much overlap as you would think, right? So that's one way that you could do it. Another one that I like to compare is VIG and DGRO, for example. You take a look at this, there is a lot, 67% of overlap, right? So in this case, it's like, okay, do I need VIG or DGRO? In my opinion, it doesn't make a lot of sense to own both of them. And so in this case, I would say, well, maybe it would make more sense to pick one or the other, right? So this, I'm not going to go into too much more detail with this. This is a great resource if you want to do your own research and if you want to compare the ETFs that you own in your portfolio. Does it make sense to hold 2 of the same or similar ETFs or just the one? You can do all of that research here and you can go to town and have fun. So what really sparked my interest for this video and the topic of this video is you can't always just believe blindly what you read or what you see. Okay, so when you see these articles or these videos, the best or the top 10 different X, Y, and Z, whatever, like take everything with a grain of salt, use it as a starting point to do your own research because you don't know what the incentive was for that person to write that article, to make that video. You don't know what's in it for them. What you want to make sure, if you're just a run-of-the-mill normal person and you're just a regular investor, you want to use these resources, look at these articles, right? Read the articles, watch the dividend videos and get, inspiration around what type of investments you should research. But what you don't want to do is just blindly look at, what other people are doing and just copy it. You have to understand, is it the right approach for you? When it comes to dividend investing, the most important thing, in my opinion, is really investing based off of your time horizon. And whether you're investing into ETFs or dividend stocks, time horizon is so important. And so if you go into my channel, I created an entire playlist when it comes to dividend ETFs. And the first video of that playlist is how to invest based off of your time horizon. So if you want to invest just into ETFs, you can take a look and you can watch that video. I break down some of the things that you want to consider when you're looking at investing into ETFs. And then in addition, if you want to learn more about, SCHD, VYM, DGRO, I've made entire videos on those topics. So at the end of the day, when I think about this, the most popular ETF does not necessarily mean that it's the right ETF for you. Right? You have to think of your investments as your vehicle. Is that vehicle going to help you get to the destination that you're looking to get to? Okay. And really understand the why. Why are you investing? Why are you, going to pick one investment over the other, and really arm yourself with knowledge so that you can make an informed decision for you and your situation. Okay, so I hope that this was helpful. I thought it was really interesting to see, beyond just my opinion, what really the facts were behind the most popular ETFs. And I hope you got some value out of today's video, and I'll catch everybody in next week's video. We'll see ya.
You know what? I think we're gonna be friends. Can everyone say hi to my friend? That's crazy. I just wanted to say thanks. I'm glad you came along, partner.